Tonight's tale is dedicated to David, to which this story is inspired by. There are places built over things that were never meant to be disturbed. Places where the walls listen. Places where children are taught to see what adults forgot. This is the story of a school that should not exist, and the teacher who helps them see. Part 1. The Basement, After School. When the first kid disappeared, nobody panicked. 7th graders transfer all the time. At least that's what the principal said over the loudspeaker, wishing Daniel the best at his new school. Everyone clapped, except John, because Daniel hadn't mentioned moving. And Daniel mentioned everything. John was 13 and hated school with a passion so intense it felt personal. He hated math. He hated group projects. And most of all, he hated Mrs. Jenkins. Mrs. Jenkins wore long gray skirts that brushed the floor and stared too long when you got an answer wrong. Her voice was soft, but sharp at the edges, like paper cuts. Kids said she lived alone in a crooked house near the woods. Kids said she talked to herself. Kids said she was a witch. John didn't believe in witches, but he did believe she enjoyed making children miserable. After Daniel, 2 more kids disappeared. Same announcement. Same applause. No one asked questions, except John. He noticed something strange. Every kid who disappeared had stayed after school with Mrs. Jenkins the day before. Extra help, she'd say. But no one ever saw them leave. John imagined what happened. He pictured a dusty basement beneath the school, flickering lights, rows of old wooden desks, stacks of endless homework packets. Mrs. Jenkins pacing between them, whispering, "You will finish every page." To John, that was the worst fate imaginable. An eternity of homework. He told himself that's all it was. Just punishment, just strict discipline. Nothing supernatural. Nothing real. Until Thursday, when Mrs. Jenkins called his name. John. Stay after class. The room went silent. His stomach dropped. He felt 30 pairs of eyes on him. "Yes, ma'am," he muttered. The final bell rang. The classroom emptied, and Mrs. Jenkins locked the door. Not closed. Locked. The click echoed. "You've been very observant lately," she said softly. John said nothing. "I appreciate curiosity," she continued, "but curiosity has consequences." She walked to the back of the room and pulled on a bookshelf. It shifted. Behind it was a narrow staircase descending into darkness. John's heart hammered. He had imagined this. The basement, the punishment chamber, the homework dungeon. But this felt wrong. The air drifting up the stairs was cold, and it smelled like damp earth. "Down," she said gently. His legs moved before his brain could argue. Each step creaked. The light above flickered out. At the bottom wasn't a classroom. There were no desks, no worksheets, no chalkboard, just walls covered in something that looked like shadows. Not paint, not stains, shadows. They moved. Slowly, like they were breathing, and in the center of the room stood the missing kids. Daniel, Maya, Ethan. They weren't tied up. They weren't hurt. They were staring at the walls, completely still, whispering over and over, "She helps us see. She helps us see." Mrs. Jenkins stepped beside John. "You see," she said calmly, "children are very imaginative, very open. Their minds bend easily." The shadows on the walls stretched toward him, reaching. They notice things adults have forgotten. John tried to move. He couldn't. They sense what lives beneath places like this. The whispers grew louder. "She helps us see. She helps us see." "They thought I was cruel," she continued. "But I am teaching them." "Teaching them what?" John whispered. Mrs. Jenkins smiled. To look beyond. The shadows peeled off the walls. They weren't shadows. They were thin, tall, like outlines of something that didn't fully exist. They bent toward the children, and the children didn't scream. They welcomed them. John felt something brush his shoulder, cold, like static. Images flooded his mind, darkness under the school, older than the building, older than the town. Something that had always been there. Waiting. Mrs. Jenkins wasn't punishing students. She was offering them, preparing them, helping them see what lived below, and once they saw it, they didn't want to leave. Daniel slowly turned his head toward John. His eyes were wrong, not empty, not possessed, just deeper, like he was looking at something behind John instead. "You should stay," Daniel said softly. "It's better down here." John forced his legs to move, forced his body toward the stairs. The shadows recoiled slightly. Mrs. Jenkins did not chase him. She simply watched. "You'll come back," she said gently. "They always do." John burst through the hidden door and into the classroom. The room looked normal, bright, safe. The bell rang. Morning bell? Not afternoon. Desks filled. Students chatting, as if nothing had happened. Mrs. Jenkins stood at the front of the room smiling. "Good morning, class." Daniel was in his seat. So was Maya. So was Ethan. They looked normal. They waved at him. No one had ever disappeared. John's breathing slowed. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe... Mrs. Jenkins locked eyes with him and smiled. "John," she said sweetly, "stay after class today." The entire room turned to look at him. And this time, they were all whispering, "She helps us see." Some lessons aren't written on chalkboards. Some classrooms don't close when the bell rings. If you've ever felt watched in the quiet hallway, listen closely. You may already be learning. Subscribe to Velvet Nightshade Tales for the next chapter of She Helps Us See. And remember, not every teacher wants to fail you. Some just want you to see. Good night